Okay, good afternoon, everybody. We are going to start our Architectural Board Review agenda for March 21st of 2022 and start with a roll call, please.
All right, thank you. I'll go ahead and start the roll call. So we have Chair Moore.
Here.
Vice Chair Six.
Here.
Board Member Anderson.
Here.
Board Member Black.
Here.
Board Member Noon.
Here.
Board Member Olson.
Here.
And Board Member Whalen.
And here.
All right, so we have a quorum. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to public comment. Any member of the public may address the board for up to 2 minutes on any subject within our jurisdiction. You can follow the instructions on screen. Do we have anybody out there?
Thank you, Chair Moore. So at this time, I don't see any hands raised for general public comment, and we did receive written correspondence from Anna Marie Gott on an item not on today's agenda. And so with that, I'll turn it over back to you, Chair Moore.
Okay, thank you. Let's close public comment and go on to approval of the minutes for March 7th, please.
Move we approve as presented.
I'll second. Go ahead.
Who is that second?
David Black.
Oh, thank you, Richard.
Mr. Black. Second by Mr. Black. Okay. Any discussion?
Nope.
None. Okay, let's vote, please.
All right, thank you. I'll go ahead and start the roll call vote. So I'll start with Chair Moore.
Yes.
Vice Chair Six.
Yes.
Board Member Anderson.
Yes.
Board Member Black.
Yes.
Board Member Noon.
Yes.
Board Member Olson.
Yes.
And Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, so the motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, and moving on to March 14th, consent calendar.
Chair Moore, I believe we just had one item on the March 14th consent calendar. That was 618 Olive Street. And that was granted final approval with a comment that 2 Mexican bush stage plants will be added directly in front of the backflow preventer on the street side. That was the only item.
Move we approve as presented.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Second by Noon. Any discussion? No, let's vote, please.
All right, thank you. I'll go ahead and start with Chair Moore.
Yes.
Vice Chair Six.
Yes.
Board Member Anderson.
Yes.
Board Member Black.
Yes.
Board Member Noon.
Yes.
Board Member Olson.
Yes.
And Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, so thank you. The motion carries.
Okay, thank you. And now we can move on to any announcements, requests by applicants, agenda items, appeals, anything from staff?
No announcements from staff today, Chair Moore.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Anything? No? Okay, any subcommittee? Oh, Ms. Anderson, go ahead.
I have a question. I just wanted to make sure that I saw the same email everyone else did about going to in-person meetings. Is that happening at our next meeting?
Really?
It is, and we're still getting new information on how that's going to work as well, but it is expected that everyone be present in person on April 4th, I want to say, and will be kind of the test run for going back into in-person meetings. And feel free to direct questions to myself or my supervisor, Ms. Gokinda. We're happy to answer any questions that you guys may have. So I know there's more information coming out, but as far as we know, yeah, back in person, April 4th. We need you, David Gebhard room. So
okay.
Do we have to wear long? Do we have to wear long pants?
that is up to you.
No, do we have to wear pants?
Oh my God.
Oh, Richard.
Yeah, just again, if you have any questions, feel free to direct them to me and or my supervisor, Ms. Kukinda.
Okay, I'll need a little refresher since I've never participated in an in-person meeting. So I'll
Sure.
need kind of some guidance on how that goes and how we review plans and stuff. So
Okay. Well, I can
I don't
reach
know
out.
if that's today or another day, but I'll need a little refresher.
Sounds good. Yeah, we can do that. So
Yeah, that's a good example of an announcement I think the public would like to hear as well. So it's definitely something that should be repeated, not only at this review, but at any other opportunity like HLC, single family, design review board, all of those. So, all right. So any subcommittee reports?
No.
No. Okay, great. We can close general business then. And if we are ready, if we have our applicant, we can go to item 1.
one moment, Chair Moore, while I promote them.
Okay. So this is 421 South Milpas Street. He's here for final approval. This is a proposal for improvements and accessibility upgrades to the Blue Sands Inn. Project includes exterior alterations to the hotel structure, including new stair tower, new site improvements, including changes to landscape and pool area, and new exterior patio along Milpas Street, and miscellaneous interior upgrades, including converting a manager's bedroom to a hotel room. Staff hearing officer approval of front setback modification and coastal development permit was granted on September 22nd of 2021. Final approval is requested. Project requires compliance with the plans. Granted project design approval on October 18th of 2021. Great. If we could have our previous motion up.
Let me pull that up really quick, Chair Moore. One second.
Great.
And then please raise your hand if you did not get promoted for a panelist as well. And Ms. Allen, can you let us know if we're missing any person of the applicant team?
Hi, this is Ms. Allen. I can't see who's been promoted. We need Don Sherry and our landscape architect, Chris Gill. I can't pronounce Chris's last name. Gillian. Sorry, Chris. So hopefully you see them there. I'll text them if they're not there. Will.
They are here. Great.
It's okay.
You guys hear me and see me?
I'll let it slide.
Okay, welcome back. Before you jump in, we're trying to hunt down the meeting minutes from the previous motion.
Those should be up right about now.
There we go.
By the way, Chair Moore, we're going back to in-person meetings at SFAR too, starting on the 1st of April. So if you want to compare notes at any time, we're doing a trial run on the 29th, I think, at the county building. But I think we're doing kind of a hybrid version. And so applicants can still tune in via Zoom if they want to. They don't have to show up in person. I don't know if y'all are doing the same, but just FYI.
Okay. Good to know. All right, so the motion was project design approval, and we found the compatibility analysis generally being met. And so no other detail other than that. So I guess what we would like to see is just a quick run through of the drawings, make sure we are the same as what we previously saw, and then go through details, color board, exterior lighting, things like that. Okay.
All right.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, this is Dawn Sherry. I'm the architect, and Joe from our office is the project manager. And so I think just right away, go to page 3 of the submittal, of the PDF submittal, which is A2.1. Yeah, just a refresher of the project. I think you probably all remember it. Nothing has really changed. Very minor alterations to detailing as the refinements of the detailing have kind of been worked through. If you remember, it's a new exterior patio facing Milpa Street, a new stair tower, pool and pool deck and spa trellis and renovation of that entire common area. A new balcony above the lobby, and that's the upper right corner to replace the clay tile roof. Next page is the site plan. Nothing's changed except refinements to landscaping and detailing. Skip to page 9 of the submittal, and that's just to show you that we have our grading and drainage plan figured out and resolved from our survey with all of our spot elevations. All of the hardscape is pervious. It's draining to away from the pool and away from the building, and you can see that indication around the pool, about 6 feet away from the pool, and it's all dissipating into the landscaping areas. And then the new hardscape, which is also pervious facing Milpa Street, is dissipating through that pervious same flagstone with permeable concrete grout, and then any overflow is sheet flowing into the sidewalk as it does currently. This is not a tier 3 project. So go to page 13 of the submittal, which is just wanted to point out that if you remember, our pool equipment is under the tower. So I wanted to point that out on that page. And skip to page 20, which is A2.3, which are the exterior elevations. Nothing's changed here. The glass enclosure around the patio, the wrought iron railings, the shutters, the stair tower on the lower right. Next page is the other exterior elevations. And then skip to page 23, which is the first page of the detail sheet. It's A5.1. These are all of our door and window details. It's basically matching an existing plaster bullnose. There's no trim on this building. Weep screen, those are just basic exterior and interior door details, again, to match existing. Next page are trellis details and the fireplace detail with the wrought iron structure to have the vines espaliate up in the middle of the page, detail 9. Roof details, clay tile details. The trellis details were included in the last submittal. That's in the lower part of the page. Then the next page, A5.3, are handrail and glass details. The handrail detail changed slightly, didn't it change slightly? No, it didn't, okay.
Yeah, it was approved already.
That was approved already. You guys have already seen that. Stair tile risers and treads and wrought iron handrail details, the window flashing details. Next page is more of the same. That's the detail section through the tower of the wrought iron. And all the specific stair tower detailing and handrail extensions. Next page is This is the glass partition around the pool on the lower left. It does not have the curved glass like the front does. We wanted the front to be special. These are just standard deck details, interior pocket door details, walkway, the edge of the walkway at the balcony, drainage, that's interior drainage, the outdoor fireplace section, and the Juliet balcony connection, which is facing Milpas, is in the upper right-hand corner. Now turn to page 41, just to show you that we have all of our structural engineering. There's more pages than this, but this is the framing plan. And then the next page is our tower framing, roof framing. Go to page 45, and those are our pool engineering drawings. We're actually replacing the pool. It has a deep end currently. We're making it slightly smaller to meet ADA requirements for a walkway on the west side of the property at that existing stairwell that we're also having to alter to meet ADA requirements by like 2 inches. How many is it? 1 or 2 inches? This one. Let's see. The next page is the other pool drawing showing that we're not going to have a deep end anymore. That's the longitudinal section through the pool. Again, all the pool hardscape is replaced with Santa Barbara flagstone and the permeable concrete grout. We'll get back to page 49 and Chris Gilliland will do the presentation for the landscape. But let's go to the material board. It was a separate submittal. And these are not changed from the last meeting. Exposed wood trellis, clay tile roof, exterior plaster, wrought iron railings, and there's the stone paver. Scroll down to, this is the upper level balcony and stair tread, which is the upper left paver. And then our door and window color, that's to match existing. And the color on the right is the shutter paint color. Carolina Gold, next page. These are our outdoor sconces on the front elevation, the step lighting at the stairs, and the stair tower chandelier within the stair tower. Next page. These are our tile surround examples facing south and west around the entry door and the new lobby door facing Milpa Street. You've seen all these before, so I'm going quickly kind of through them, but stop me if you want me to. Next page. Additional tile options, just to give you an idea of the direction we're going, which is kind of more muted blues and greens and not the fiery reds, oranges, and blues and greens that are the most typical Spanish. We're going in a little different direction on that. And then these are our step lighting. You can keep thumbing through. These are just spec sheets. Everything's dark sky compliant. There's our chandelier, our sconce. And I think there's maybe one more page. That's the downlight on the upper level balcony lights to the rooms, because there's no room on the walls for a sconce. It's really tight to meet ADA. So that's a oil red bronze trim on those. And that's it for my presentation. We're excited to go into the building department and we're here to answer questions. And Chris is going to talk about the landscaping.
Okay, thank you, Dawn. We can run through these. So the hardscape layout and dimensioning, I mean, most of the hardscape detailing was done by Dawn's office. So we're kind of dimensioning things and calling out pots and fire pit and that sort of goodness. So we can go to the next page. Pots, kind of keyed into the previous page. So if you want to take a closer look, you can. Mostly kind of going with traditional style, and we want to probably, we want a few different options maybe for those pots that are shown in terracotta here. And so we'll see, we've called out cobalt blue, English lead, and or the Tuscan wash. And then you see the removable gas fire pit there, which is close to the front door and the front patio space. So next page. Just irrigation plan, all new irrigation, all drip. And next page. Planting plan. I won't go through everything, but there's more call outs. A lot of the similar, same plant material that was called out on the concept plan was brought forth for the CDs. So you can, David can read through that and see if you have any questions on plant material. Next page. Planting and irrigation detailing and our compliance statement. Next page. Lighting plan, all, down lights, step lights, and path lights. And so, they're all shown off to we do have some wall wash lights, which will light up to the top of the page, the existing wall, which we're covering with ficus. And then we have one for the future monument sign out front. And yeah, otherwise pretty straightforward and fairly minimal. We didn't go too crazy with the lighting. And I think that might be one more page, but that might be it. That is it. So I'll take any questions also. Thanks.
Great. Well, let's open public comment for this item. If any member of the public would like to address the board regarding this specific project, you can follow the instructions on screen.
Yes, thank you, Chair Moore and board members. So at this time, I don't see any hands raised for this item, and we did not receive any written correspondence. So with that, I'll turn it over back to you, Chair Moore.
All right, thank you. We will close public comment and go to questions from the board. Does anyone have questions? No? Excuse me. Go ahead, Mr. Six.
Thank you, Chair Moore. This is a good page to start. I noticed that there is indication of vines along the pool wall at the parking. Is that indeed planted to ground? And is there a detail that shows those, either a sliver or a pocket for those to make sure those have an adequate healthy area to mature and to live?
Yes, so we didn't, thank you, Mr. Six. We did not have room along the wall to plant here, but we do have vine pockets. We put it wherever we could, basically. And so there's a vine pocket here, and there's sort of a little existing planter over here. And so the idea is that it's ficus and it'll be, it'll take a little time, but it'll train down the wall. And I know that was a specific request from the last meeting.
So there's no way to put an intermediate triangular vine pocket that would be okay for traffic?
I think, Dawn, maybe you can speak to that, but I believe we explored that and they would not allow us to put even a tiny little vine pocket there.
Okay. So what's graphically shown is either optimistic or takes a lot of training.
Yeah, I mean, it's ficus, so it'll get there.
Okay. I didn't see any structural or connector details, Ms. Sherry, on the patio, the pool trellis? Do you have those as yet?
That's part of the structural engineering package. Joey's drawings. Ours is our details are the ones you saw when you last reviewed it, but the structural connections are going to be hidden, and we could go back to the structural engineering. It's not like we could see if it's on there, but definitely, Richard, they're going to be hidden connections, all of them.
Okay, so you don't know exactly where to go with for that?
Yeah, you could start at, you could go to page 41.
I just don't want to add a comment that needs to be verified if it's indeed on the drawings now.
It's not there yet. Do you know what page it's on?
There is some structural detail.
Yeah, keep going. Like go to 43 or 44. His structural details are farther.
That's what we have now.
Yeah, that's what we have so far. Go back one.
Yeah, I didn't see it in my preview. Okay.
His plans, Richard, are about 90%. We don't have calcs yet, but they are definitely going to be knife blade connections.
Okay, very good. Well, that's a comment, but I appreciate you being sensitive for the pool equipment noise. Is there going to be sound bat insulation in those walls and ceiling? And what is the door? Is the door going to be an open air type thing for this machine to breathe, or can we enclose it with secure sound, not soundproof, but sound dampening enclosure?
It's completely enclosed with ventilation. MEC is doing all of the plumbing and mechanical, and they're about 90% too, but we did not include their drawings in this set, but we've had a lot of conversation with them about that. But the structure itself, the stair tower, is CMU, and so we're not anticipating.
So you won't naturally ventilate to the out. You'll have some kind of ventilation from within, and the door will be solid also.
Yes, with obviously with ventilation as well. We've been working. Paul Savaris has been working closely with the pool contractor on the details, and all the pool equipment is selected. It's all been checked for sound, and they've been working on all the detailing for ventilation.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Okay. Anyone else? Questions? No? Okay,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
My standard questions on a project that's going for final year, double check valve for your fire. Is this a commercially fire sprinkled project? And if so, where's your double check valve?
No, we're under the threshold that triggers fire sprinklers on this project.
Okay, and then your backflow preventer for your irrigation. And
yes, it's shown in the irrigation plan.
And that's screened.
Southwest corner. Yeah, it's behind behind new wood fence.
Oh, okay, down there. All right, I got it. There was some other connection on the very upper right-hand corner. That guy way up there. Those are valves. So great. Okay, very good. Thanks. Those are my questions.
All right. So just check again. No one else with questions at this time? Okay, then let's go to comments. Who would like to start?
Well, I will continue. I think it's a very nice project. It's thoroughly documented. I would make the following comments that I think that your trellis could, your trellis posts are what, 6 by 6?
Yes, I believe.
Okay, so I think the trellis would feel a lot better if there are more generous overhangs, both in the main 2 beams and in the trellis, instead of 1 foot and 1'9" respectively, if they were 2'9" and 2 feet or something like that, it would look a lot more generous. And your engineered 2 by 8s for your trellis would look a lot more handsome if they were 3 by 6, or if you don't want to rip them, 4 by 4s. Maybe a less spacing, but I think that you could have a lot more handsome trellis if you took those suggestions, and those would be suggestions only.
Thank you, Richard.
And I just, because we don't have the structural evidence on the plans, that just a note on the final approval that all connections, there'll be no exposed metal connections on the trellis, even at the base and at all other member connections. That would be my comments, and I think it's a very nice project, and thank you for your patience as we went through the many different issues on this page.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else with comments?
I think I can make a motion for final approval.
Great, go ahead.
I move that we approve the project for final approval, and with the following conditions. And Mr. Six, would you insert those conditions that you felt were necessary here?
Well, the one definite condition would be to the trellis will have no exposed metal structural connectors.
And is that the only one that you'd like to insert, Mr. Six?
Well, I think Dawn would be interested, Miss Sherry would be interested.
I agree, Richard, with your.
I'm sorry, let's.
Okay, so.
This is the time for our motion.
All right, so I won't, yeah, that's the only one. And if Miss Sherry wants to take my suggestion on the trellis member sizes and overhangs. Well, let's just say, okay, let's say, no, this is final, so I'll leave it off.
Okay, so then we need a second.
I'll second that.
Go ahead. Seconded by Mr. Noon. Is there any more discussion? No? Okay, so question for Mr. Russell. Is that clear enough for staff to be able to make that during their review, to make that, to understand what is being asked?
Yes, I believe so. And they
Great.
do the final plan check.
Excellent. Great. Perfect. Okay. If there's no more discussion, we can take our vote.
I'd like to have the motion read, please.
Sure, I can go ahead and do that. So the motion was for final approval with the condition that the trellis will have no exposed metal structural connectors. And it was made by Olson and seconded by New.
Thank you.
All right, now we can vote.
All right, I'll start with Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, so the motion carries. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Guys.
And good luck with the remainder of the process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we can move on to item number 2, which is 36 East Montecito Street. This is a continued item for concept review. And this is a proposed tenant improvement for the existing commercial building. The project includes renovations to the building, reconfiguration of the parking lot, new landscaping, and new outdoor patio area. Project requests consideration of an alternative landscape design to provide relief for existing site constraints. The project requires planning commission approval of a coastal development permit. No final appealable decision will be made at this hearing. The project requires compliance with project compatibility findings and the urban design guidelines. We last saw this January 24th of this year. Okay, if we could have our motion from last go around, please. All right. So continue indefinitely with comments on the site plan. Study the interaction between the steel planters and the sidewall with the adjacent sidewalk. Introduce a possible buffer between the sidewalk and walls. Study breaking up the linearity by providing non-continuous planters and walls. Study the parking to see if additional landscaping can be provided on Montecito Street and the north side of the building. The contemporary style is acceptable for the funk zone area. And then regarding the alternative landscape waiver, the board is supportive of a reduction of the planters along the property line facing Montecito and Anacapa streets, as long as the applicant studies introducing planters between the sidewalks and walls. The board appreciates the additional street tree wells and the elimination of the driveways. And okay. Then we had some individual comments, and it looks like we have Mr. Bauman with us. If you might want to make some introduction.
Yes, thank you, Chair Moore. Good afternoon, ABR members. The applicants provided plans that respond to all the board comments, or that was the idea. I had a few staff comments just to put this review in a little bit of context. We did one land development team application review on this project, and there's a to-do list for the applicant, just miscellaneous minor things, a lot of the public improvement details for curb cuts and ramps and detail things like that. And the applicant emailed me today and asked why this project, the coastal development permit, couldn't be reviewed by the staff hearing officer, and he was correct. This project's in the non-appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone, so it would go to the staff hearing officer rather than the planning commission. So I mentioned all the little details type stuff, but to preface that if the ABR is generally satisfied aesthetically with what they see architecturally and with site walls and landscaping, you could make a motion for indefinite continuance to the staff hearing officer, not the planning commission. I think that's it, and I'll stand by if anyone has questions. Thank you.
Okay. Let's have the applicant walk us through the changes from the last time.
Excellent. Yes.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jared DeGancey with Anacapa Architecture. I'll be presenting the exterior updates and the parking lot restriping reconfigurations and run through the items that we discussed in our last comments. So yeah, thank you, Tony, for that intro. And as Tony had mentioned, we're processing this for CDP and change of use, and would like to, if board finds it applicable, like to provide project compatibility, so we may move on to staff hearing office or approval. So if you could jump to the site plan on page 9, and then we can start running through the comments, please. Excellent. So yes, comment number one was to, on the site plan, the board had asked to study the interaction between the steel planters and the sidewall with the adjacent sidewalk. And so essentially the buffer between Montecito Street on our property and Anacapa Street on our property. And so you'll see on the left-hand side along Anacapa Street, I'm sorry, along Montecito Street, we've studied that interaction between that site wall and the sidewalk, and we've shifted that wall back, which was previously in this zone here, and we've now shifted it back to the rear of the planter to further kind of green up this elevation as perceived from Montecito Street and also perceived from the freeway. If you want to jump to page 14 real quickly, you can see we've done a somewhat of a simulated view of how that would be seen from the freeway. You know, we took out the freeway fencing, but the idea is this is how it would be perceived, knowing that this has a high visibility. Perfect, thank you. It's a high visibility site, and one of the comments last was just to see how that's perceived. And so we've tried to push that wall back to where it really pushes all the plantings forward. And also we've been working with Nathan Slack of Urban Forestry to discuss the addition of these additional planters and his recommendations for the magnolia tree per the city plan, and also the spacing he's been made aware of, and he's approved our updates as well. And then please, if you could jump back to page 9 for the site plan. The other half of that first comment was looking on the Anacapa Street side. And so we studied this elevation as well. We decided the planter before was right on the property line. And what we've done now is we've shifted it back slightly to where we're using an existing site wall. It's a low 2-foot brick wall to act as a small buffer. And then we actually want to build a continuing brick wall to match the existing around these planters to create somewhat of a stepped facade. If you want to jump to page 6, you can see that brick wall quickly on. You might have to zoom in a little bit. I apologize, but that's this top right image. Number 3 is the best if you want to zoom in right there. So it's roughly 2 feet tall, and what we're proposing to do is essentially keep that wall and then extend it along this side to act as a buffer for those planters. And if you want to jump to page 13, we have a few of those views. You can see how we've placed that in between. And so we think it helps break down the kind of the immediacy from that planter by giving a small little buffer and having that brick wall, which is of the existing context. And we can paint that to also match the proposed building, gives it a bit of a softer transition into those planters. We had considered pushing the planters back even further to put an in-ground planter in front of that, as was suggested previously, but walking around town and looking at some other projects, we noticed that sometimes those in-ground planters that have a lot of foot traffic in front of them will get kind of have items like trash thrown in those. And so we felt if we have this brick wall and then our planter with the plants, it's going to provide kind of like the most bulletproof, clean solution for the area. Jumping to item number 2, this comment was study breaking up the linearity by providing a non-continuous planters and walls. And so this is still a good view to look at. So I think most of that was kind of addressing the street frontage along Anacapa Street, where we had the planters surrounding the updated property. We studied options to break the planters into smaller lengths to break up that the linearity of the wall, but due to the nature of having a future wine bar tenant in this space serving alcohol, it was important. We're trying to create a space to have a barrier that minimized any sort of issues managing customers to stay within the property. And then we thought if we made those planter gaps smaller, that might break up the linearity, but then that also again becomes a spot to where if these planters have a couple inches in between, it could just be kind of little areas for trash. And so trying to keep like cleanliness in mind, we still felt by pushing the planters back with the brick wall, although it's a continuous face in one direction, we're going to have the irregularity of the natural planters and the stepping of the planter down to the brick wall. We still think it provides kind of a lush and pleasant area to walk in front of without feeling too much like a wall. We actually also included an exhibit, which I think someone had jumped to. I believe it's the last page of this PDF, just doing a walk around town, looking at similar edge conditions. And we felt like the most successful ones were the ones that did have planters in front, or like raised planters just to give a bit of a barrier, but then a little bit of a softness. And so something like this is our idea of where we'll have our planter at the perimeter, it steps back into green, and then you have the space beyond. And just looking at other examples without the planters, it was a little bit more of a harsh transition. So we felt good having the planters close to that line, but step back slightly. And then item number 3, and this one might be the most helpful if you want to jump back to the site plan on page 9, please, the proposed site plan. Comment number 3 was to study the parking to see if additional landscaping can be provided at Montecito Street and the north side of the building. With this, we're limited by the parking standards of the city of Santa Barbara, so the drive aisle widths and also parking aisle widths, and we're also limited just by nature of working with an existing building footprint, trying to reutilize the existing car rental place that's sitting there now. We were limited in wiggle room. We were able to add, as per one of the suggestions in our last hearing, just extend that planter more, about 8 feet, and we've kept the other planters as were, just because what we've done is we've maximized the size of those planters while meeting the width standards of parking spaces and the associated drive aisles. And also the other part of that comment was planting on the north side of the building itself, mainly this elevation here. This is the primary side where people will be entering from the parking lot. So in terms of accessibility, we wanted to keep clearances to the doors as less hindered as possible, but we did add a green planter here just to give that corner a little bit more lushness that you see around the other sides of the entire space. Comment number 4, this was the contemporary style is acceptable for the funk zone area. So with this comment, we thank the board for the comments. We did make a slight revision based on a few of the board members' comments about the colors and fitting into the context. If you could jump to page 12, please. Previously, we had kind of a cooler white with a black trim. We've decided to warm this up a bit to be a bit more of the Santa Barbara context, where we're using a warmer white and also a darker brown instead of the cooler color. So a slightly warmer palette we feel matches the existing context a little bit more. And also, as you've probably seen in some of the 3D views, the planters we were showing around the perimeters were previously black. And now what we've done is we're proposing Corten steel planters, also to be a little bit warmer. And then we're also having that brick wall buffer. Yes, thank you. Something like this, but with the 2-foot painted brick wall in front of that. And the final comment with just regarding, we requested an alternative landscape waiver. This comment says the board is supportive of the reduction of planters along the property line facing Montecito and Anacapa Street, as long as the applicant studies introducing planters between sidewalks and walls. And the comment says, board appreciates the additional tree wells along Montecito Street and elimination of the driveways. So we are, and I can revisit that if you don't mind jumping back to page 9. Another effort to kind of improve the existing site is there are currently driveways there's a multitude of driveways into that space, which are not in use, and we are proposing to infill those, rebuilding up the sidewalk, planting them significantly to make the space a more green experience. So that's it. We thank the board for their comments and look forward to the questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Open public comment at this point for this project. If there's anybody in the public that would like to address the board regarding this, you can follow the instructions on screen. And do we have anyone out there?
Thank you, Chair Moore and board members. At this time, I don't see any hands raised for this item, and we didn't receive any written correspondence, so I'll turn it over back to you.
Okay, great. And we'll close public comment and go to questions. Who'd like to start? Mr. Black, go ahead.
Thank you. So just quick question about I realize you don't have final landscape plans here, but I was just curious, your renderings show, like for instance, in the planter along Montecito Street, now you've got a 42-inch high wall that you're proposing, which is fine, but your renderings show what appears to be sort of a high hedge, and I was wondering whether in fact that was your intention. Is that what you're sort of anticipating a hedge as opposed to?
Yeah. Yeah, so the 42-inch wall perimeters is really just coming from the perimeter planting standards out of the city's municipal code. And so we're trying to abide by that. But the intent is to get, as much planting there to cover that wall, just because I think we want to make that seem just like a seamless green perimeter instead of having that wall show along East Montecito Street.
So is your intention then, well, the way it's drawn in your rendering, I realize it's just a rendering. It looks as though it could be a 6-foot hedge. Is that your intention long term?
No, not to be 6 feet. I think long term the intent is to just hide the 42-inch wall. And so we will come back with landscape plans and specific species that will show that a little bit more accurately. But yeah, we're not trying to be taller than a person along the Montecito.
Okay. And then the masonry walls, could you remind me what the color finish is going to be on those?
Yeah, the color of the finish is going to be what we're proposing for the main building, so a warmer off-white.
Okay. Got it. Those are my only questions. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Questions? Vice Chair Six, go ahead. You are muted still.
There we go. Thank you. Am I to understand that, well, how much new of this masonry wall will be included? It will return.
If someone could jump to slide 9 on the site plan, I can show you where we're proposing.
Yeah.
So in red, what we have is this is the existing wall. And then in blue, what we're showing is we're proposing to wrap that in here and then wrap here and wrap here up to right here, there's an existing fire curb that we're limiting. And then along this perimeter, we're having a 42-inch wall and then this wall as well to kind of shield off the bike parking as required by the city.
So all the teal color will be new wall to match the existing.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And then I guess while we're here, is there any way to functionally to add a plant, the iron planter that you have provided in the corner of the front elevation facing Montecito? Is there any reason that one could not be added flanking the other side of the folding doors?
Well, yeah, if we could jump to the elevation, which is going to be, I believe, page 11 of this PDF, please. And it's actually on the, perfect. There's this area here, which is open, but in terms of depth of the sidewalk, we're limited. And so at the end, you won't need to walk to that end. So we're not trying to maintain the certain width path of clearance. Whereas if we put a planter here, it'd have to be a fairly narrow planter, probably like 6 to 8 inches. I can't remember the exact, to still have, a little over 4.5, 5 feet of clearance, which we're trying to maintain to access into our main door here.
Okay, enough said. Thank you. I think those are my questions.
Okay. Anyone else? No?
Oh,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Are you still considering the whitewash on the brick? Is that correct?
Yes, we felt that worked the best with the white. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. If no one else has questions, I have a couple. So I guess going back to the board comments regarding the planters and walls along the sidewalk. So you were successful and you moved the Montecito site wall back.
Correct.
And you now have a nice wide planter in front of that wall. How wide is that planter?
Planter is, I believe it's 4 feet. I'm looking at.
Okay.
4 feet deep.
And then, so on Anacapa Street, there's this little block wall along the
Correct.
back edge of the sidewalk. And then, so the board's comment was to introduce planting in front of the sidewalls along the sidewalk, right? Study ways to do that.
Some sort of a buffer, yes.
A landscape buffer. So can you explain your logic again about increasing the amount of block wall along the property line?
So yeah, we recognize it wasn't a landscaping buffer to where it'd be an actual planter. Whereas I think if imagine if this was within our property line, scooting back our planters and adding, a 12-inch deep or something in-ground planter. Our concern with that is because you're going to get more foot traffic on this side compared to East Montecito, because we imagine most people will be approaching the site from this direction. These smaller planters in front of the brick wall or in front of our planter tend to get trash a little bit more often if it's on the ground, just either by wind or by people pushing or dropping items into those planters. We felt that if we didn't have something in the ground, we could have a cleaner appearance from the street and still pushing the planters back 6 inches.
Okay. So did you study eliminating that block wall and simply having like a Core-10 fence behind that planted area? That's kind of behind that green area that you're showing on Anacapa Street?
Our first option had showed just the planters with no wall. And we did it, I guess I'm not following the fence. Would the fence be on the street facing side? Because I think what we'd like is the plants to provide a visual buffer between both spaces. And then the planters themselves will just be essentially, customer control, just to minimize people wandering off in public way with a drink.
I guess my question is, did you study the board's suggestion of an in-ground planter in front of a barrier of some sort?
Well, sorry, I'm not being clear. With the in-ground planter, that was our concern, is when we did look at that, we thought the in-ground planter was more susceptible.
So that was your study. You looked at that.
Correct. We looked at that, and yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. And then explain to me, so somebody that walks up Anacapa Street, are they going to approach the business from that gap in the planters there? Is that the idea?
Yes, this would be, access for pedestrians from further in the funk zone.
Okay. And then, okay. All right. Anyone else with any other questions before we move to comments?
No.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Chair, I guess.
Go ahead.
It would seem to me that simply a zigzag or.
Is this a question or a comment?
Okay, I'll refrain and do a comment.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move to comments then. Vice Chair Six, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. I think, I voted against the compatibility. I think that, with a slightly warmer palette and the Core-10, and I think, we're not going to, I think the building, the way it's proposed is an honest expression of this existing building, and the warmer colors, I think I can be supportive of it as I wasn't before. I think that number one, the rendering of the vertical, I think it's already been alluded to, the rendering of the vertical planting is unfortunate that, low, softer stuff just taking care of the wall, and maybe more variety along the length of all the planters will help.
And we'll improve upon the planting once we bring in a landscape with actual planting types.
Now, and I resonate with Mr. Chair Moore is concerned about still the linearity of, well, let's back up. As I asked my question on the new and old existing walls, I think you might think that, think it over about trying to match that old wall and the extent of new versus old. I think you're going to be by far better off demoing and replacing that section of old wall in order to get a consistent match that you'll be happier with. That being said, I think that the solution of the linearity of that Anacapa Street planter, in between that longer length wall, if the wall could jog and come back to be at the backside of the iron planters, and then therefore for about 8 feet long or something, 8, 6, 8, something like, 8, 6 feet, you would capture a back of sidewalk planter that people would not trip over or run over because it's pocketed between the flanking walls at the sidewalk. So I think that would be all that I would need to see in breaking up that linear concern. And along with the poor rendering, I think that essential also in these planters would be a shrub that drapes and softens the edges of the upper lip of that of those planters. Yeah, I think those are my comments.
All right. Who's next? No one else with comments? Okay, well, my comments are, in the vein of what my questions were. I guess I just don't understand the approach and don't agree with the approach of the extending the existing block wall along Anacapa Street and then turning the corner. It just and trying to then pair that with a Corten steel planter just seems a little just not. I just don't think that's going to be a successful outcome for this design, and I think the project would benefit, and I think the public would benefit from the planter along Anacapa Street being in ground and having a whatever barrier you need for your wine bar business being behind that. And then you would have the planted material softening the expression of that barrier. Otherwise, I think the remainder of the project seems fine. It seems acceptable at this point.
Yeah, I think
so,
the keeping.
I'm sorry. This is not an opportunity to go back and forth. This is our comment time. So if you could tell. Thank you.
Yep.
And so those are my comments. Anyone else? Ms. Anderson.
Yeah, I generally agree with what you said, Chair Moore. But I think maybe introducing or studying just alternate heights of the planter instead of having to go in ground along Anacapa. I think they've definitely missed the mark of our comment on keeping a monolithic line. I think we're clear on trying to break that up, but there's many ways to do that. And I think even just materiality or height differences or like Mr. Six said, jogging in and out, besides just an in-ground planting. But yeah, I agree they should study that.
Okay. Anyone else? No?
Mr. Chair, just to
Yes.
add to your concern, I do agree that, you know, I resonate with your idea of the kind of the awkwardness of the old old masonry with the new core 10. Maybe the win-win would be just simply have core 10, but having a core 10 single wall at places and having the corners and the flanking areas of the opening there to have your core 10 planters abreast this against the sidewalk, and then go back into a pocketed in ground with just a single sheet of core 10 in back of it to separate it from the drinking areas and so forth. Maybe that's a suggestion that could be applied and make everybody happy.
I agree. I think there's a lot of different solutions. I think the point, as Ms. Anderson said, was to, you know, per our last comments, was to try and reduce the monolithic appearance of that site wall right up against the sidewalk. So, okay, does somebody want to craft a motion? Or we could do this. We recognize that the applicant wants to move forwards in the process. And I think, you know, that although there's some debate on the landscaping and the site wall treatments, et cetera, I think, in my personal opinion, is that I think in general, the project is going in a good direction.
Chair Moore?
Yes.
May I suggest for the sake of time, you just roll this into a formal motion?
Well, my point of that was to suggest that maybe we take a straw vote to see what board members would agree that the project could continue forwards to the staff hearing officer, and then return with hopefully an amended design to satisfy some of our concerns.
Great idea.
Mr. Bauman, any thoughts?
Yes, thank you, Chair Moore. I was just thinking the key question for your motion is whether it's a continuance to the staff hearing officer or a continuance back to the ABR. And one of the findings to comment on, you know, you don't make findings at this time because you're not doing an approval right now, but one of the criteria is about whether the project proposes an adequate amount of landscaping. And then the other item kind of related to that is the question about the alternative landscape design. And that would have to do with the dimension of the perimeter planters. The code calls for a planting area of at least 5 feet in depth along the front perimeter of a site. So, you know, you've already kind of indicated that you could accept less than that given the constraints of this site. So the question really is about the depth or width of the planters along Anacapa Street. So I guess it'd be a question whether the board is generally okay with that planting area that they're showing along Anacapa Street, and also generally, is there enough planting depth and landscaping on the site to continue it to the staff hearing officer?
Okay, thank you. Okay, I guess it would be good to hear from other board members how they are feeling about the amount of landscaping in general. They are providing additional street trees and things like that.
You want to do a straw vote, Chair Moore?
Sure, we can do that. So let's make it simple. How many board members feel that there's an appropriate amount of landscaping proposed on this site. Say, it looks like we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have Moore, Black, Olson, Noon, and Anderson saying yes, and 6 and Whalen saying no.
No, I accept.
Oh, you did? Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
We'll include Vice Chair 6 in the yes, and Whalen in the no. Can't. Okay. So I think in general, it seems like there's enough landscaping. It's just the configuration and kind of subtlety of the arrangement along Anacapa Street is the concern. Okay, so, oh, Mr. Black, go ahead.
Well, I guess I wanted to ask a question about whether there's a consensus to have that little planter along Anacapa, whether we want the barrier to be adjacent to the seating area with planting out at the sidewalk in ground and just eliminate the Corten steel planters, or to have the way they're showing it with the Corten planters. I don't know, I sort of favor pulling the barrier back along the edge of the DG and then having the planting along the sidewalk. And then you can manipulate the variety of plant material to sort of soften that, whatever it is, whether it's Corten or just more masonry wall. But I think that seems to be the question for me, you know, as far as the board's direction here, how we want to handle that barrier along Anacapa.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we want to give the design team flexibility in how they respond to these comments.
Yes.
And my personal feeling, and I think my comments stated that I agree with you, Mr. Black, that the planting should generally go in front of the barrier, and perhaps there's an aesthetic arrangement that they can show us that, you know, as Vice Chair 6 commented, maybe there's a way to stagger it, do something else interesting if that's what they prefer. So,
yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I'll make a motion for a continuance to the staff hearing officer with the following comments: that in general, the board feels that the project is appropriate for the area, that the parking configuration is appropriate due to the existing constraints on site, that the board can grant the parking landscape waiver for the parking spaces along East Montecito Street to reduce that planting width to 4 feet. And that the project in general is headed in the right direction. The applicant shall study alternative designs for the proposed planting along Anacapa Street. Suggestions are to place the planting in ground, and the fence or barrier or wall should be behind it on the property, or the applicant shall study staggering the wall and the planter to provide a less monolithic appearance from the street. And
go ahead.
And I guess, Mr. Bauman, we would need to kind of preliminarily make the compatibility analysis. Is that correct?
Yes, it's good to touch on those findings when you're continuing to the staff hearing officer.
Okay. We could put those on the screen. Okay. So I can preliminarily make the compatibility findings Number one, consistency with design guidelines. Project is consistent with design guidelines with as the project is within the funk zone area and is an existing structure that is being remodeled, and the board feels it's consistent with the area. Number two, for those same reasons, the board feels the proposed design is compatible with the neighborhood of the funk zone. Number three, the project is not changing, it's not proposing to change the size, mass, bulk, height, or scale of the project. Number four, sorry, my screen's pretty laggy today. It is, as far as we are aware, it is sensitive to any, or as far as we are aware, there are no adjacent landmarks or historic resources. Number five, it does not propose to change any public views of the ocean or mountains. Number six, it does provide appropriate amount of open space and landscape.
I'll second that very eloquently crafted motion.
Okay, seconded by Vice Chair Six. Any discussion? No? Okay, let's vote.
All right, thank you. I'll go ahead and start with Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Block,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Voting no.
All right, thank you. The motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Whalen, do you want an opportunity to state why you voted no?
Sure, I'd be happy to, Chair Moore. I voted no on the previous iteration. I don't think this proposal relates or reflects to the adjacent buildings, which are Spanish colonial revival, has no sense of Santa Barbara, despite being in the funk zone. So I don't think the design is appropriate. I don't agree with the parking waiver, and I don't think it's headed in the right direction. So that about wraps it up for me.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, well, I believe that is it for our short agenda today. And with that, we can adjourn our March 21st meeting. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.